This is Game On, discussing the biggest games and all the latest sports news with Johnny Montalbano and Hank Indictor on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
It's showtime, folks. It's episode 42 of Game On here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. I'm Johnny Montalbano. Yes, I am here. And that is Nick Morgasen. Nick, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a while, but I know you've been busy, so it's all good.
Yeah, let me just come out first and foremost and say, number one, I want to thank you. I want to thank Tom and Hank for holding the fort down. Number one. Number two, I am good, folks. I have just been extremely busy. I feel like this has been like June, July, August busy over the last couple of weeks. So everything is fine. I'm healthy. I'm safe. Everything is good. Just, real life sometimes gets in the way, and that's going to be the case. And I'll be around at least for the next several weeks. I will say at the end of February, I will not be here because I'm going to be on vacation, and that week I will be away. But hopefully that'll be the only time away I'm away for the next bit. But it's good to be back. And yes, I did come back for Super Bowl week because by hook or by crook, I was going to come here. I was going to find a way to do this. I don't care if I had to do the show. If we had to record the show at 2:00 in the morning, I was going to find a way to do this. But we are here. It is Super Bowl week. And Nick, it is an exciting week because, finally we are inching closer to the big game. And we're going to discuss that. We got a lot to discuss and a lot to look forward to over this show and in the coming week. But of course, folks, we want to hear from you as well. So make sure to follow us across all of our social media accounts. We're on Facebook and Twitter at GameOnETB. We're on Instagram at GameOn_ETB. And our personal handles, I'm at Montalbano NY and Nick is at N Morgasen Radio. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel at ETB Network and check out our website, etbpodcasts.com. A lot of great blogs up there, including from our co-host Hank Indictor. He's put up a lot of great ones over these first couple of weeks. So definitely a lot to check out there. So it is Super Bowl week. So obviously we're going to discuss the big game coming up at the on Sunday, but there's also a lot of other stuff happening in the world of sports. And of course, that's just how it's been here on Game On. I'm away and the news doesn't take a break. So obviously a lot to get to, including with the NBA. Now, the NBA trade deadline is happening on Thursday, and already a big story is developed. I was looking at the calendar, Nick, and I was like, well, you know what? It's been 3 months since we had Kyrie Irving news, and that's about right. About every quarter of the year, Kyrie Irving decides to make headlines, and he made it in multiple ways this week, including finally the Nets moving on from him, which we will discuss. I know you are a Nets fan. We're going to get to that. We've got other NBA news as it looks like more and more like we may, I hate to say it, folks, we talked about it with baseball, how it seemed like it was inevitable that things were trending towards a lockout. Well, I think in the NBA, it's going down that road as well. And then we will wrap up the show with a couple of baseball nuggets, as not about pitchers and catchers reporting real soon, even though that is the case. We got a story about Alex Cora and Carlos Beltran, which were two guys that we've been talking about in Astros news, and we will discuss that coming up. So a lot to discuss, but Nick, we've got to get it going here with Super Bowl 57 happening on Sunday between the Chiefs and the Eagles, and they landed in Arizona on Sunday, so we can finally get down to business. And I always say this, I think these are the two slowest weeks of the year, when you go from the conference championship games to the Super Bowl. And it's really a week, when I look at it, I try and get away from it because, on Monday night, you did have Super Bowl opening night, which I'll be honest with you, I did not watch a single second of. I mean, like I said, if your team's not in the game, it's really not even, a game. It's more of an event. Now, I've had the luxury of having the Giants in on Super Bowl 42 and 46, and of course the one back in 35 and 2000. And it's a different and I got to say this, it's definitely a different feel when your team is in it versus when it's somebody else. And on Sunday, I'm going to a Super Bowl party. I'm seeing friends who I've not seen in a couple of months. So for me, really, Sunday is more about catching up with friends than it is about the game. Now, of course, I'll watch it because I'm a huge fan. But Nick, the headlines, leading into this game, like, how do you feel now as we're a few days out from Super Bowl 57?
See, it's interesting the way you brought it up. Like you said, I think of it more of as a party, not even an event. Like you show up one time a year. It's like Christmas or New Year's. You show up, you throw a big party because it's a massive holiday that you have with family and friends every year. But then it goes away and you have to wait a year again for it to come back. I've looked at some of the storylines for this. It's the Andy Reid Bowl. That's one that came to my mind because obviously he's coached both teams. It's the Kelsey Brothers Bowl because the two of them are playing. And then it's the battle of Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. And it's a first, 2 black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, being the starting quarterbacks for the first time ever. So there's a lot of storylines, and you could also put gambling storylines on top of that, but I don't really care about that as much. I mean, we will talk about lines on Saturday. I actually put that in. We're doing a Super Bowl preview special on February 11th at 1 p.m. with both our sports shows on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network YouTube page, across all social medias. So go check that out when we go live, not recorded, live on Saturday. But it's going to be a good game. They're saying it's going to be a coin flip, the closest game on the gambling lines in a long time. So I think I wrote it in our group chat the other day. I think it was the Eagles are a 1.5 favorite right now based on the latest update. By the way, I think it's way too early to be putting any point spreads on this game. It's It's freaking Tuesday, for crying out loud. The game is not until Sunday.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's interesting about that, just to push back on that for a second. Usually the opening line of the Super Bowl, it does not move that much. So when you get that out there, it's probably going to remain like that. It may budge a half point in either direction, but I don't think it's going to move that much. And that's about right. I think it's going to be like a 2-point spread by the time we pick the game for real on Saturday. But they also were saying, and I know you don't want to talk about the gambling aspect, but I read an article this morning that
I don't mind it. I like the gambling stuff. It just gets annoying like this early on in the process.
Yeah, and they're talking about this being probably the most bet Super Bowl in a sporting event in history. I saw something that it was going to be like $16 billion with a B.
That's not a surprise, though. And that number is going to go up every year now, because what's happening is you're seeing all the gambling networks are now putting out deals. I'm sure you've seen the Kevin Hart DraftKings commercial a billion times. Well, if you put $5 bet, you get $200 free bets from DraftKings. Or I don't know, name your Caesars Sportsbook with ESPN. That because they're in a partnership. You see that constantly on ESPN. I mean, heck, ESPN has a whole Vegas location now where they do all this gambling content.
Yeah, it's gotten so out of control. I know we do point spreads when you guys do rapid rundown on Empty the Bench, when we do our Football Friday picks for Game On, but that's all in good fun. Trust me, if we put real money on it, Hank and I would have been in the red.
I think we would have been also, or we would have been like even at best.
I would have told you right now in the postseason, I would have been in the red.
I think we all got hit by our picks in the postseason, to be honest.
So after the conference championship games, we use DraftKings for our Football Friday picks on Game On. It opened up at Philadelphia laying 1.5 points, and it has not moved. So it's
early.
It's early. I'd be surprised though when we pick the game for real on Saturday. It may go to 2. It may go to 2.5, and the only reason why that would be is if they find out like Mahomes and Kelsey's injuries are still lingering, which they probably are, but they haven't said. Now, it didn't look like that in the conference championship game. But yeah, those are the big storylines about that. Also, I believe it is the youngest quarterback matchup in Super Bowl history with Hurts and Mahomes, because Mahomes, even though he's been in the league for 5 years or 5 or 6 years already, he's only 26, 27 years old.
27, yeah.
And think about, he's been in at least the conference championship game in every year. This is his third Super Bowl that he's been at. Losing to the Bucks, winning. Which one did he win? He won one. He lost to the Bucks, and now this is his third one. We all know for the Eagles, this is their second one in 6 years. The first one with Jalen Hurts under center. So somebody made a funny point to me this morning. What is could they see imagine Jalen Hurts getting benched again in a championship game like he was during the national championship game for Alabama when he got benched in the second half, and then Tua came in and led them to victory. But it's just crazy.
By the way, it was the Niners.
That's right. It was the one against the Niners back in 2019. Yes, right. That was and then he beat the Niners there, and then he almost came back and beat the Bucks. But remember that was the game he was running for his life in that game. So
also the fun fact of that game: first appearance in 50 years.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I'm stealing a Hank line there.
Well, we got it. Hey, I'm sure you guys were using my thunder too in the weeks while I was out. So,
well, I said that the reason you were gone is because you were a frustrated Knicks fan.
Oh, I'm never coming back if that's going to be the case. But I know there might be, people might be saying they're going to be tired of me by the end of the week because there's a possibility you might be seeing me at least 3 times this week. But
stop
that. I'm just kidding.
You haven't been here in a while. I think
I know, and it's eaten me. Trust me, folks. But yeah, so that's the things that we're looking at here. So as the week progresses, obviously, you're really not. They're going to try and drag all the coverage out as possible, but those are the main storylines going into it.
It's crazy. I mean, look at Odyssey because you listen to FAN, even though you're a New York original down in South Carolina.
As I say, I'm a New Yorker that lives in South Carolina. Yes.
I mean, Odyssey. BetQL.
I sure do. Yep.
Their gambling network, which is crazy. The amount of content that they're putting out. They're putting out like 16. They said 12 to 16 hours, not radio content necessarily. Their digital BetQL network is putting out 12 to 16 hours of content a day down in Arizona.
I think, and I see that's just like it's so out of control now.
How much gambling content can you put out in a day when you're basically going to be saying the same thing?
And the thing is, well, I mean, because they will break down the latest updates and try and make that into news. And then you also know the Super Bowl prop bets. And that's probably something we're going to dig into a lot more.
I like them, but sometimes they're a little much.
Well, listen, I don't ever like to encourage gambling and stuff, but the one bet that I don't bet, but if there was one wager that I had to make on any sport, on anything every single year, and this because it was one of the first things I was a part of the Empty the Bench podcast network was during the Super Bowl preview show last year. I always say you always take the over on the time of the national anthem.
Oh yeah, that's a given.
That's been one of the other things too that's been promoted a lot these past weeks.
They won't even
is who's doing the anthem, the halftime show.
They won't tell you anymore. And they even hide it when they do the practice. Do you remember now when they do all the prepping and the practicing? They won't even show it anymore because they're afraid that it's going to affect the bet.
Oh, I know. But there's people out there that do it. I mean,
you know who started the whole over trend with the national anthem?
Well, I mean, you're going a ways back, right?
There's one person I know where this all started and how this prop bet came to be.
I think I know, but tell me.
Christina Aguilera.
It was Christina Aguilera. Okay, I was thinking of something along those lines.
Because of all those ridiculous runs she would put in the song, that like, oh, well, and then they would. The joke was, I think that year, let's average it out and see if we can figure out how long it can be. And I was like,
not to sound mean or anything, but you know what? The best national is the one that's done at Yankee Stadium with either Robert Merrill's rendition or I think it's like the U.S. Navy band or Army band.
Yeah,
that does it, the pre-recorded version. And again, I'm not trying to be cruel and saying that. Look, at the end of the day, you're still honoring America, so that's the point. But it almost is like it takes away from the true meaning of it. But yeah, that's part of it too. It's part of the many prop bets you're going to get on Super Bowl Sunday. But
my favorite though, the Gatorade.
Yes, the Gatorade color. That's right. Yep.
Because everyone tries to make up this weird thing like, it has to do with the teams in the Super Bowl, or I guarantee you, whatever the ball, it's usually the ball people that probably carry the game. They probably just say to them, "Go grab a whatever you can find and put it in there." They don't
Well,
care.
yeah. Well, see, I'm sure like for Kansas City, it would be red, and for Philly, it would probably be white. That's why we're
Or
probably
green.
favorites. Yeah, I don't know. Does Gatorade have a green color? I believe
Yeah.
so too. I think they got a lemon lime color, something like that.
But I'm saying is I don't think they put much thought in it. Everyone thinks that like they do it on purpose, like they put a color in there, like.
Conspiracy theories. Yep.
And I'm like, come on, man. Are you that much of a degenerate gambler that you're going to try to figure out what Gatorade color they're putting in the water bin?
And then of course the commercials, which I will say this: I have not seen any.
I heard one story that Budweiser and I forgot who their competitor is, but they're doing a commercial together as a contest. I think it was Budweiser and Heineken or whatever it was. I have to look it up, but
I'm almost liking the fact that I don't know any of the commercials as of right now. Now, again, it's only Tuesday. We've still got 5 days to go. But yeah, so those, of course, are always the things. But as far as the teams in the game itself, look, somebody's going to be a 2-time winner in the last 6 or 7 years, which is very, very difficult to do. And I guess you could also say the other thing will come out of it will be, and I have to get this off my chest. It's been 2 weeks, but I'm a New Yorker first and foremost. But the amount of outrage that was pointed towards the Empire State Building, white and green and white for the Philadelphia Eagles is just absurd. Because you know what? They would have done that no matter who it would have been. If it would have been Washington, if it would have been the Jets, well, the Jets are New York, but Washington, if it would have been Dallas, if it would have been Miami, if it would have been New England.
That was the joke, though. People thought that the green and the white, like they're like, did the Jets do something?
I did see that, yeah.
But you know what? I thought it was really funny.
You guys, real soon. I'll say this. I mean, I know you're going to be a free agent in terms of football, which I have to talk to you about at another time. But
yeah,
they're not that far off, too.
But it was just funny. Like, people were overreacting to the Empire State Building, and then the Empire State Building quote tweeted back. It was really funny.
Yeah, and I'll say this. If you want to be serious, I'm saying this as a New York fan. You know what? New York sports have to be better. Because you know what? Let's just be honest. Philadelphia is better than New York in football, in basketball, and in baseball right now. I'd say the Rangers are better than the Flyers, and the Rangers, Islanders, and Devils are better than the Flyers in hockey. But the other 3 major sports, Philadelphia is better than New York in. I'm sorry.
I mean, Philadelphia has had a really good run over the last couple of years, over the last 5 to 7 years, like what Boston did in the early 2000s with the Red Sox and the Patriots. I mean, like, same thing.
Celtics too. I mean, the Celtics
too.
Yeah, I mean, they've had, and you have to respect that. This is the second title that a Philadelphia team is going to be in the last 3 or 4 months.
And don't count the Sixers out. The Sixers might make a run this year.
I totally agree, and I really think they are. I mean, I think it's all going to come down to as long as Embiid and Harden can stay healthy.
Well, and Harden's not a head case, but that's a whole different.
No, but I mean, he really hasn't been this year. I mean,
no, he's played good ever since he left the Nets.
Good, but he's also missed some time this year with an injury too. But that, I think you're learning there too. You have the big two, and then you get the right pieces around. Embiid's playing like an MVP again this year. Look, got to be fair. As much as it pains me to say this, Philadelphia sports is in a very good spot right now.
They are in a very good spot now. I don't know. I think people are being a little too pretentious on the line, saying the Eagles are a 1.5 favorite. I think the Chiefs don't get enough credit for as well as they played through injuries. They had to revamp their whole roster when they lost a few guys. And what I'm going to say next, I say this all the time. I use things from First Take because they're so ridiculous at times, where they basically, Stephen A. and Michael Irvin were debating who's going to have the dynasty, the open dynasty of the better dynasty, the Chiefs or the Eagles. And I said, is that even a fair fight?
Well, yeah, first of all, I don't think this is really. I mean, the Chiefs are the closest thing to a dynasty because they've been in the AFC Championship game every year for in Mahomes'
I think the last 5 years, right?
Right, yeah. But I agree with you. This is probably the worst Chiefs team that Mahomes has had this year. And even with him being banged up and Kelsey being banged up, I didn't think they were going to beat Cincinnati. I really thought the Bengals were the better team in that matchup, and they totally proved me wrong.
I mean, and they also committed an awful penalty down the stretch, but
see, the thing is that penalty, the late hit out of bounds, it cannot be talked about enough because they want to talk about other calls in that game. But that penalty was so bad, and Cincinnati, which I really thought had a golden chance to go back to the Super Bowl this year, now might have a tougher road to it because Burrow's going to have to get paid. They're already talking about T. Higgins being on the trading block,
which is ridiculous. By the way, they're not even entertaining the idea of a contract. I love how they do this with athletes, not just the NFL. Now they're doing this in every sport. They automatically assume, oh, you're going to have to pay a lot of. All right, we'll just trade you before it even starts.
He's got one more year left, I believe. Higgins does before he's a free agent.
But I'm saying, like, they're already talking about trading him in rumors and speculation without even having the conversation.
But you know why? Because if they're going to decide, do they rather pay him or you got to pay Burrow? And Burrow is going to be one of those guys that are probably going to make $50 million a year.
Now, I know we don't have this topic, and Hank and I talked about it last week, but think about what's going on in Oakland right now. And think about what happened to the Packers. And I heard a ridiculous thing when I was listening to ESPN radio the other day, and this goes to show that you need to do your factual checks before you say something on a national radio show. One of the guys said, well, Devontae Adams basically didn't want to be in Green Bay anymore. That's completely wrong in every way, shape, or form.
Right.
They didn't have the money to pay Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So before you spew something out of your mouth, make sure you do your fact checking. And that's what I'm saying here. That might happen, what you said in Cincinnati. If they have to pay Burrow, what, 50 to 55 million because of what happened with Aaron Rodgers? Or what happened to Deshaun Watson, who basically inflated the quarterback market?
Mm-hmm.
You might not have the money to pay T. Higgins.
And I think you're also going to see that with the Chargers, too, because they're already talking about Keenan Allen not coming back there. And he was very valuable to them this year. He just was hurt a lot of the year.
Well, okay.
Justin Herbert's going to be another one of those guys that are going to probably get north of $30 million. I mean, look at just taking from my Giants for a second. They were already reporting that Daniel Jones might be in the $35 to $37 million range,
which is insane in my opinion. Sorry, but I think that's insane.
I think it is, but under the right system, it works, and that's what happened this year.
And this is going to be frustrating for me to say because I don't like saying this guy's name very often, but everyone needs to write a big thank you note to Deshaun Watson and his agent because they completely inflated the quarterback market without even trying.
That's right. Yeah,
and I don't like it. I've said it to you many times. I don't like it. I wish Deshaun would go far away from the NFL and we never had to see him again. But every player needs to go thank his agent for putting all that money out on the table.
So that's part of the reason why it's hard to have dynasties. And maybe Kansas City can do it because Mahomes is already locked in to a long-term massive contract and they could fit those pieces around him. And that's what they did this year. If you look at who they had, I mean, this was not one of the best teams that he's had, and look what they were able to do. And, Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts will be another guy who's going to get a big bump in salary
You hope.
Well, he's not a free agent, but I think it's the 5th-year option or something with him.
Right, but I'm saying would Philadelphia play hardball like what's happening with Lamar Jackson, which we talked about last week, Hank and I. Now, the difference between Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson has been hurt for 2 straight years.
That's right.
So, and we discussed it, I'm sure you saw it when we did it, that basically Ian Rappaport had come out and said that he's going to get the exclusive franchise tag from the Ravens.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
And Tom and I said it on ETV that if that happens, we said this months ago, we can go back in the archives in both of these shows, because I'm sure you guys said it too. And we said, if he gets a franchise tag, he's going to be sitting out.
I think that's very likely.
So, but I don't blame them because he's been hurt and seriously hurt. And I guarantee you the Ravens are having a little bit of agita what's going on in Miami with Tua.
And Tua did clear concussion protocol down there. And I know I put that out in the chat. You don't think that that's really the case?
Well, no, it's not that I don't think it's the case. It's that I'm concerned about it.
Well, this is the thing, and I know we're going to spend a lot of time in the offseason about quarterbacks, and we're going to talk about another quarterback situation coming up in a few minutes here on the show. But the backup quarterback is starting to become just as important as the starter. Look at all the different guys who played this year under center. Your backup quarterback is just as important, which is why I'm not quite understanding what's going to happen in San Francisco. And I know we're going to get to it, but that's why if you're the Chiefs and the Eagles here, while it seems like you're set up for years to come, are you really? That's the thing. So you got to take this and cherish it, because I think for Kansas City, it's more likely because Mahomes is already locked into a long-term contract. But, he's already done this for 6 or 7 years, and he's kind of had these knick-knacking injuries already for the past couple of years. So
Right,
we'll have to see. And remember, that AFC West is still kind of a very interesting division going into next season.
Right, but and Hank and I had this discussion. I'll ask you the same thing. The NFL you would consider is probably the most toughest knick-knack injury sport out of all professional sports, right?
Meaning
that you're gonna have to deal with more. There might be small injuries, but there's more of them.
Yes, I think so.
You're going to deal with more wear and tear. More wear and tear.
I think so. I mean, baseball maybe as well, but hockey players play through everything. Basketball players take more days off than anybody else.
Oh God,
baseball players seem to be getting hurt more too, and that's for a variety of reasons. Same thing in football, but it could be that extra week. It could be the fact that they're not practicing as hard as they used to in the off season. There's a bunch of factors.
But I would say the NFL is the most physical sport. You're constantly hitting people. So that's part of and quarterback position is like the catcher in MLB, where you're constantly getting beat up. Constantly, it's one of those positions. Now, quarterbacks get the most money, but they're also the most wear and tear. That you better hope you protect them. And that was Kansas City's problem for quite a few years. That their O-line was not protecting Mahomes, and that's why he was getting hurt.
Yep. And so, I think, and that's what was amazing with Burrow these last couple of years, getting to the Super Bowl and getting as far as he did this year with an offensive line that was in shambles. And remember, he was down a bunch of guys in the playoffs too, and they still found a way to get there. But you really wonder if Cincinnati, how long that window is going to be. I really thought they were going to get back there this year. I really did. And now, you have to wonder is with maybe Pittsburgh not being as bad as we all thought, with the Ravens, who are going to be in a very interesting spot with Lamar in the offseason.
I think they're in trouble.
It could be very, very interesting test. This offseason, that's one of the first things we talked about on Game On when we started last year in March. It's going to be more of the same this year, because there's going to be a bunch of quarterback, not as crazy as last year, but there's going to be a lot of quarterback talk and movement, possibly with Carr, with a bunch of guys. And we're going to get to one in just a moment here. But speaking of quarterbacks or now retired ones, last week the news broke about Tom Brady, 1 year to the day that he announced his retirement, and he did talk. Came out on Monday that he said that he's going to start with Fox in the fall of 2024. So it does give Greg Olson one more season with Burkhardt, and those two guys, of course, will be calling the game. And the interesting thing is, Nick, is when I think Marchand had said this too, under the new deal with ESPN, ABC for the Super Bowl, Brady's first season, Fox is getting the Super Bowl again. So Fox is going to have it twice in a 3-year span, but that's because of the new contract.
That was no accident, by the way.
Yeah, so his first year, he's going to get the Super Bowl, which I think is really, very cool. But
I think that was no accident. I think that he and Fox, I don't think that was just him making decisions. I think Fox probably said, hey, take the year, figure out what your family life situation is, and then come back in 2024. And by the way, look, we'll dangle the carrot at the end of the line. We'll let you call the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I just hope this isn't one of those things where the other weird rumor I heard, which, well, guess what? Maybe he's waiting to see if he can get back to a team at the end of next season.
I don't think this is that to be the case. I don't think this is like Brett Favre or one of those guys. I truly think this time he's done. I don't know what it was with last year that it lasted 39 days. I mean, to talk about family or personal matter or whatnot, I think they realized. I mean, Brady still had a pretty good year. Speaking of offensive lines, the Bucs offensive line being battered and stuff all year was a big reason for their struggles. And Brady still had a pretty great year considering all of that. and all the injuries to their receiving core. But at the end of the day, you're only as good as your talent's going to take you. But
and by the way, you want to talk about offensive lines that almost killed a quarterback? Look at Tom Brady with the Bucks last year. Do you see how many times he was scared to get hit in the pocket? And that's because the O-line was not protecting him whatsoever. Another team in the playoffs, the Vikings. We talked about that. Their O-line is a mess. I mean, look how many times Kirk had to run out of the pocket just to protect himself.
Yeah, and I think Minnesota's also got to shore up that defense too. So there's going to be a lot of movement with a lot of these teams in the offseason here. But so Tom Brady going to start with Fox at the end of next year. So we'll give Greg Olsen at least one more year with the top crew, because you would imagine Brady's going to slide into the number one role.
I'm not happy about it, to be honest. Leave Greg Olsen where he is. Him and Burkhardt.
Well, see, now I'll throw out something interesting here too. Why can't all three of them do it together? You usually don't see 3-person crews, and when they do, they don't work.
They don't work.
I think
there's too much. There's not enough room to talk.
I think that's what ESPN's problem was for the longest time with Monday Night Football, was putting the 3-person booth.
That you're talking about Levy, Greasy, and Riddick. Which, to be honest, it probably should have been Levy and Riddick, because I think Louis Riddick gets a bad rap for whatever reason, because
Louis is good.
He's very good. He's
excellent. Yeah, he's also done the college game on the Thursday nights with Matt Barry. So absolutely.
I think in the long run, ESPN made the right decision with Buck and Aikman, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Buck or Aikman, but it gives them a professional presence in the booth that they really didn't have.
And it's going to give them a Super Bowl.
Well, I think that was going to happen one way or the other, because it was only a matter of time that the Super Bowl was going to end up on ABC. It's really not ESPN, it's ABC, but because not everyone has ESPN, which is kind of shocking to me that a lot of people, that mostly everybody doesn't have ESPN.
Well, it's still a cable channel at the end of the day, yeah.
But I don't know. The one thing I forgot to say about the Super Bowl also, I'm tired of, on the day of the Super Bowl, I don't need my Super Bowl coverage to start at noon.
No. Hey,
I'm going to turn it on at, when does the game start? It's at 6:30.
6:30.
I might turn it on at like 6:15.
Well, Nick, let me tell you, and I say this to people all the time with my main job, I love working Super Bowl Sunday morning. I need something to pass the time, and then I get home around, let's say, 11 or 12, and then I go take a nap and get ready for the game. That's why I love working Super Bowl Sunday. This whole week, I'll say this, I'm not going to watch a lot of TV this week.
I don't really care, to be honest.
It's really all the same stuff, and that's why that those 2 weeks in between are always so tough. The first week is all right, but then once they get to the location, in this case Arizona, it's again, unless your team is actually in the game,
you don't care.
You don't care.
I mean, what was it? Unless the Super Bowl was in New York, that was kind of cool. We got to see some of the festivity stuff.
And I'll say that, yes, I remember that quite well. The festivities that they did in New York City that week were phenomenal. You know what? If they got their act together after the game, New York would host another Super Bowl in the future. But because of how poorly they handled mass transit after the game, they will never get another one in our lifetimes.
And wasn't that the snow issue also, if I'm not mistaken?
That was the next day is when it was snowing.
But I'm saying they knew the snow was coming. They didn't handle that well either.
Yeah. But that's the risk you take, though, with putting the Super Bowl in a northern city or state and not having a dome.
It's not even just that. You have the same issue with the Olympics when you put it, and I'm sure you've seen documentaries on this before. I have, and I took a master's class at Hofstra on the Olympics. But basically, what happens when they pick up all the stuff for the Olympics and they put it in a country, what do you think happens to it afterwards?
Oh, yeah.
It's stuck.
It's stuck, yeah.
Like, the countries are like, oh my God, we're going to make all this money, but then they're stuck with all the Olympic stuff. They can't do anything with it. So what's the point of hosting the Olympics if you can't use the stuff anymore? Same thing with the Super Bowl. They have to build the whole city up that the game is in. And that's why I think that they've pretty much come to the conclusion that it's either going to be Phoenix or maybe San Francisco, like West Coast cities.
Yeah, because last year was in LA.
But the one problem you have with West Coast is media content, because now everything is 2 to 3 hours ahead of time.
Right. Yeah.
So that's but I could give two craps about most of the media that's covering the Olympics anyway.
Well,
Olympics, Super Bowl. I mean, Super Bowl. Yeah.
Well, some of the sports shows actually have not gone out. Like the morning shows have not gone out there because of the early time.
Some of them have. I saw
some have. Like Boomer and Geo did, but DA did not go out there again.
Oh, I didn't know Boomer and Geo went out there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's early though. It's it's 2 hours in Arizona, not 3.
In Arizona too, yeah.
But that's still 6 a.m. That's 4 a.m. start time. That's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get up real early for work every day, but that's kind of pushing it a little bit.
But you know what? I get this. Fox is thinking strategically. This is not just a Brady decision. I'll tell you that at the end of the day.
Well, I'll tell you this too, as somebody who likes following, how I like to dish out announcer crews, especially in our football.
I love the media. I love the media stuff.
Yeah. I think Fox is set up for years to come now with Brady, with Olsen. I mean, they got a good group of guys. Mark Sanchez, I think, is fantastic. I mean, they're really set with color commentators and even announcing crews because Kevin Burkhart's still very, very young. I mean, they're set for a long, long time right now.
Who would Olsen be on the 2 crew with?
That would probably be Joe Davis. I would imagine. It'd be. See, the question would be, what do you do with Daryl Moose Johnston? But
this is part of the issue. When you bring a big name in, they don't think about the consequences of everybody else. They don't care.
I'm just trying to think of the guys. So you have Moose, you have Jonathan Vilma, who's very good.
He's really worked his way into his broadcasting game.
Absolutely, I'm trying to think who else. I said Sanchez. Just trying to think off the top of my head because I could rattle off 6 crews for Fox and they'd be set for a while. So let me see.
I mean, you had Schlereth, but I don't know if that's
Mark Schlereth is another one. Yes, I mean, there's another one.
And who was I'm thinking of the play-by-plays. Was it Rosen, or did he go?
Oh, Sam Rosen is only doing Ranger hockey.
I thought he was,
he was on Fox for a while, and then he dialed it back.
Okay. I mean, it just makes me think, and we were joking about this. I don't know, Jim. I don't know what's going on here.
I loved when Sam did football games too.
Sorry, Tony Romo. You don't deserve any praise.
That's another thing. I don't know if you guys. I don't know if you talked about that on.
We did,
but yeah, that
a little bit.
Thing that CBS is going to have to fare with. But we'll see with what Brady. But you're going to have at least one more year before this becomes a thing, and we'll find out. And you never know. Some people may move on. There'll be other things that open up. You never know in the world of sports media. Things always happen. So
we'll see.
We'll find out what happens with Brady. Now, just dialing also about quarterback news, and I brought this up a couple of minutes ago. There's a very interesting situation happening with the San Francisco 49ers here, Nick, because obviously we know in the playoff game against the Eagles, Brock Purdy suffered an elbow issue, and
UCL tear.
Turned out that it was a torn UCL. And the thing with that was the initial diagnosis was saying that it was going to be a 6-month injury, and I was very hesitant to believe that because it looked almost like the kind of injury that a baseball pitcher suffers. And they both, I know they don't throw the same, but they both involve throwing with the elbow. So I'm thinking more it's going to be closer to a year, which would probably put him out for all of next season, I would imagine.
They're talking about TJ surgery.
Yeah, now they're still figuring out exactly what he's going to do, the course of action. I mean, I would imagine that it's going to have to be Tommy John, and you're going to have to get that done at some point. But that does lead it now. Now that means that you have Jimmy Garoppolo, and you do have Trey Lance, who suffered an injury earlier in the season, and he's out for the year. So now you're down to 2 QBs for next year, because I'm going to say that Purdy's going to get the TJ surgery, and I think he's going to be out for the season. I don't see any way that he's coming back any earlier than that. I mean, he couldn't do anything. He was so hampered in that game. Which
couldn't throw.
Yeah, it was just awful. And not to piggyback, but I don't know why they didn't go to like a Deebo Samuel under center to try and throw the ball, because you had to air it out and get something going. I mean,
they went to McCaffrey at the end, but it was kind of a joke.
Yeah, but you knew you were going to be running the ball, whether you're going to direct snap it or whatnot. But so now you're down to 2 QBs. And at the end of the season press conference for the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, their head coach, was asked about Jimmy Garoppolo going into next season. And he said that he does not see any scenario where Garoppolo is going to be on the team next year. I thought that was very, very interesting, because You have Trey Lance coming back from an injury, and you really don't know yet what he is. I mean, Trey Lance has thrown fewer passes in his 6-year career. When I mean 6-year, his time in college and in the NFL, than what was it, like 17 QBs through just this season alone. The NFL has become a throwing league. I mean, it's been a throwing league for a while now, but
I've said that for a long time, that if you can't throw the football, you can't be a quarterback in this league anymore. Now, the way the league is. Back then, it was kind of hybrid where you threw the ball, you hand the ball off. If you can't throw for 250, 300 yards, you're not useful to an NFL team anymore.
Yeah. So he was asked about that, and he said that he doesn't see any scenario with Garoppolo. Now, you could probably get a good amount for him in return, but wouldn't it make sense, though, to keep Jimmy G on the team next year, considering their injury woes that they had?
I mean, yes and no. This got me annoyed when I saw the actual press conference with Kyle Shanahan. Like, for the most part, he's a smart guy. This kind of confused me when I saw him say this during the press conference. Your quarterback situation is in a shamble right now. And you're definitely not going back to Johnson. I'll tell you that right now. Who's been on 13 NFL teams. Well, he has experience. No, he doesn't have playoff experience. He might be around the league with 13 teams. He doesn't have playoff experience. He's off the roster. He's not coming back. But this Kyle Shanahan was being dumb. It was the dumbest thing I ever saw. Well, I don't see any scenario. Who are you to say that? Maybe that's not your decision. Maybe that's the GM and the owner's decision.
I just don't know with the history of their quarterback situation with injuries and stuff, how you can tell me that you don't see any scenario where Jimmy G is going to come back. Now, there will be teams that'll line up for him. And
well, the bizarre thing I'm going to say now is, what happens if he's on the roster?
There must be some contract thing that would be.
But
I mean, now in general,
he said there's no scenario where he comes back. What happens if he ends up on the roster?
Well, there must have been a scenario.
But that's my point. Yeah, how awkward that's going to be.
Oh, absolutely. But I think they've been talking about trying to move on from him for a while now. But I just think in the wake of Purdy, and I have to give one of my friends a shout out in saying this, he thinks that Purdy could have been a one-year wonder. Now,
I agree with you.
Right? I mean, now the 49ers do have the kind of team that helped him out, but
I just think the Niners overall were a good team. It didn't matter who you really put under center at that point, except for Johnson. But it didn't matter if you put Purdy. It didn't matter if you put Garoppolo. Trey Lance, I'm still up in the air about. But you could have put Garoppolo or Purdy under center, and they would have still won the same amount of games that they got to at this point. So I don't think it really matters.
Well, we'll see. And there will be teams that line up for Jimmy G. I mean, that is for sure.
And his contract is actually, believe it or not, going to be considered friendly because it was signed way before.
Yeah.
Any of that. I think he's on the hook for 150, if I'm not mistaken.
I will look it up for you right now. But let me throw this out to you, being can I say resident Jet fan?
For now, I guess.
For now, okay. Well, that's because I know there's been a lot of discussion, especially over on ETB, about your team status.
But he signed a 5-year, $138.5 million contract with the Niners in 2019.
So he has, 2 years left then?
It's pretty friendly, believe it or not, if you look at it.
Oh, okay. So I'm looking at it right now. So he's got, oh, wow, it's actually really not that bad. He's got 1 year left.
Right. So that's why he wants to be traded so bad. But yeah, what were you saying about the Jets?
Well, if you're the Jets, would you take a flyer on them?
No.
Okay.
No. I would not. I don't know. Also, I don't trust his outside the football life a little bit, to be honest, with some of the stuff I've heard that he does.
Yeah.
I'm also afraid of the injuries that he's had.
Well, that's very, very fair.
The guy I really think the Jets should be going after is Derek Carr.
I agree with you on that 100%.
I don't want Aaron Rodgers. Get Aaron Rodgers out of here. I'm sure you saw an ETB clip go out from last week where I completely lost my mind.
Oh, I look, I would agree with you 100%. I don't think Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I know why they're talking about it because of Hackett signing, which is another one. I mean, when I put that out, when I saw that, I was like, "Oh boy, Nick, here we go. Hackett's there."
And I was mad last week. I'm still mad, and I basically said, "Well, look, the Broncos brought him in, and they thought they were going to garage, and the Jets, who are a day late and $1 short when they do things, well, let's bring him in too. We'll see if we can get Aaron Rodgers. Let's coerce Aaron Rodgers.
You know what? Maybe they'll keep putting him in as the offensive coordinator instead of actually as the head coach is actually the way to do it, though.
I mean,
it's a big year for the Jets next year. It's the third year for Saleh. I mean, so he knows he's desperate.
There's no way in any scenario Zach Wilson could start on that roster, though. There's no way. But I've been wrong before, and the Jets think they know better than everybody else.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, the pieces are there.
Defense is Super Bowl quality.
Offensive line, that's something that has to be shored up. That's another team that needs to shore up an offensive line. But it's there. The defense is there. The receivers are there. The running back is there. The tight end is there. Defensively, for the most part, they're there.
I mean, if I was severely desperate and I had a choice between Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson, obviously I'm going to lean the other way. But there has to be other scenarios in that regard.
Derek Carr, I think, makes more sense if I'm the Jets. I agree.
The problem is though, the Jets and him, he's not a handoff guy. He throws the football.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
I just think, the Jets are not that far off because, New England's not that good. I think Buffalo actually showed you that they're not as close as people think they are there. And the Dolphins are such a wild card because how healthy really is Tua? And it looked like Skylar Thompson had some decent throws in that game against Buffalo. I mean,
he got hurt too.
But he got hurt and he needs more seasoning. So, I mean, it's there for the Jets if they think about it.
And I wouldn't even say the Patriots are a team that are competitive, be honest.
They're not a good team.
And, I mean, the Bills are going to be the top team for a while in that division. But I now have questions about their situation and what's going on there.
By the way, look at Buffalo as a team for Saquon Barkley.
That's what I had said to Hank, and Hank wasn't surprised.
He did what? He wanted to what? He wanted to cry? Hank, if Buffalo's going to offer Saquon a big contract,
I'd say bye. See ya. Bye. We don't need that.
I can go get a running back for $1 million off the scrap, bring him in, and
you don't want a nobody though.
We had that 2 years ago with Devontae Booker. He was the best running back they had. They couldn't even sign him back because of the salary cap hell that they were in. That's not to knock Saquon, but it's just showing you that the running back position in general. You know what? You've spoken about this before too. The lives that they have. Look at Jonathan Taylor, who was a stud in his rookie year. This last year, he was
hurt
all season. Did not have a great year. And these running backs. I mean, I know Philadelphia's got one right now, Miles Sanders, but I mean, really. And Pacheco's going to be a big guy there for Kansas City in the Super Bowl too. So.
And look at McCaffrey. I mean, McCaffrey found a new life out in San Francisco. It seems like
after how many down years there in Carolina.
I think, and that's, how they say like change of scenery and people like basically get mad when people say that. I think that actually is accurate sometimes, that sometimes you just need to pick up and go somewhere else if it doesn't work anymore.
I mean, Saquon's worked. It's just he hasn't been healthy. But this past year, he's healthy.
But I'm saying that basically, like when McCaffrey said, "All right, I'm out of here. The Panthers ownership is not doing anything to improve the team. Our quarterback situation stinks. I'm out. See ya."
Carolina's going to be another interesting team in the offseason too. I know we keep talking about that, but
and their coaching situation got me annoyed. It got both of us, Hank and I, annoyed last week.
They didn't bring back Wilkes.
Well, that he's not the head coach. How do you not give him an opportunity after turning it around?
I mean, I actually didn't mind them getting Reich, but I was shocked that Wilkes didn't get the job, and he's been interviewing for the coordinator's positions in other spots. But
you know what they turned it into, though, right?
Don't turn it into a Rooney Rule thing. It's just.
I mean,
it
not to
go anywhere.
No. But I think it's a problem. He was the only black head coach technically last season.
On an interim basis, I get that.
So, like his management, his agency came out and said, "Well, what the heck? We didn't even get an interview."
Well, if he didn't get an interview, that would be understandable. But I guess he didn't get an interview.
They went right to Frank Reich of all guys.
See Frank Reich's walking to a similar position that he was that was in an Indy. So I could see that actually working out. And let's also be fair too. That NFC South, unless somebody makes a gigantic move, is going to be crap again next year.
And now that Brady's out with the Bucks, it's even worse. I mean, like,
where's Tampa going for a QB next year? Are they drafting somebody, or are they going to have Blaine Gabbert, or are they going to get somebody else in there?
I mean, do I dare say that they'd be one of the teams for Aaron Rodgers? I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, it's possible.
The Niners, the Niners could be a team for Aaron Rodgers, and now Devontae Adams, who somehow decided to come out and say, "I'm trying to coerce Aaron Rodgers down to Vegas."
Rodgers is not going to San Francisco.
That would be a heck of a pickup, though.
Well, he's already, according to Aaron Rodgers' son at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am this past weekend, he said, "I'm not."
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. You know, as I said, it's going to suck when this is the last football game of the year on Sunday, and then there's no football for another 6-7 months. But you know what? There's going to be a lot of storylines, and I'm sure we're going to be very, very busy on both of our shows. Again, there will be no breaks in the actions for the shows. So
the NFL offseason is sometimes more entertaining than the season.
See, I think baseball's like that. Football can be because it's like an everyday thing, but baseball's become like that where the offseason is almost more fun than the actual season itself.
I think the NFL is the rare sport where you constantly talk about it all year, even when there's no games.
Baseball used to see it locally. I think New York, for instance, I think baseball was a 365 a year sport. I think football has trumped that too. And also because we get hyped for the draft, we get hyped for the schedule release.
That's what's scary.
We almost could do live streams on the schedule release.
I think we did. Was it last year we did that?
We did the draft. We didn't do the schedule release.
We were going to.
We were thinking about it, and then it just didn't work out with all of our schedules. But no pun intended there. But we'll see what happens here with the NFL. Again, big game on Sunday, and we will all be on Saturday, 1 p.m. for our Super Bowl preview show, where we will dive into all the latest news and everything about the game, including those prop bets, including picks, so much more. So Saturday this year at 1 p.m. Eastern here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, we should have everybody there, and it will be a show. So stay tuned for that. But usually this is all about football, but not this year, Nick. We have a lot of other stuff to get into, including your Brooklyn Nets, because it's been about 3 months since we last talked about one Kyrie Irving. Well, we're right on schedule, as it did happen. You know, now a couple of days before this happened, we were hearing reports that Kyrie wanted to be traded. Then we heard about him having a calf issue, and then it happened as the Brooklyn Nets Sunday night, that big old Sunday news dump. You know, you have no football, but you have a lot of big news here, as they did trade Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris to the Dallas Mavericks, and the Nets get back Dorian-Finney Smith, their former guy, Spencer Dinwiddie, and they got 3 draft picks out of this year. I think it was like a 2027 first rounder.
It was a 2029 first round unprotected and a 2027, 2029 second rounders, which is a lot of draft capital, by the way.
Yeah. And, you know, you're the Net fan here, so I'm curious. You know, we've spent a lot of time on both shows talking about one Kyrie Irving. Now he's gone.
You know what? He had to go. He had to go. Now, what's weird and what people are forgetting in the timeline is that he actually said he wanted to stay with the Nets and he wanted a contract extension. He wanted a 4-year deal. He wanted to stay here. And I was like, wait, what? And the Nets, which I don't blame, said, how the heck can we give you a long-term deal if we can't trust you to not be a normal, well, I don't want to say normal, but behave? I mean, all the situations between the COVID vaccine or the anti-Semitic movie,
yeah,
or which we spent a lot of time on, or just being a normal citizen in general, couldn't do it, could not handle it, was always in the news. You would see him sitting in the stands during the game because he wouldn't get vaccinated.
It's so awkward. You know, the whole experience with him was just awkward because it was always something. That's the thing. It wasn't criminal stuff, but it was just always annoying things. Like disappearing from the bubble. I mean, let's also not forget that. He not only not in the bubble, he disappears from it.
That was he wasn't the only one, though. I mean,
I understand that, but I mean, there was that. There was the whole vaccine situation. There was just take last year, for instance, the whole flipping of the bird in the playoffs against the Celtics.
Well,
then this year,
I thought that was completely inappropriate, by the way.
Absolutely, and I don't care what the fans are doing. Look, I mean, if fans are acting like that, you know what? You stop the game, you go to the refs, or you go to security or something. You tell them that you don't.
But there's a problem there because again, fans pay money to see games. I'm not condoning the behavior.
Oh yeah, that's the thing too. I remember I did one of my sports minutes on that.
I mean, do you remember the whole Russell Westbrook water bottle throwing incident or the popcorn throwing incident?
Oh, yeah.
And he basically came out after the game and said, well, that person wouldn't do that to me in my face if we were on the street. Which, by the way, he's right. You wouldn't do that to an athlete's face because...
Absolutely.
But the other issue you run into is you're afraid that a camera is going to catch you doing that. So you wouldn't do that. But this deal doesn't surprise me. Kyrie had to go. And some athletes are just not meant for New York or Brooklyn or whatever, the big city where all the big bright lights are. Ask the Knicks and James Dolan how that's working out.
That's one of the only good things about not being on the last couple of weeks is I didn't have to talk about that story.
And I had a lot to say about that whole thing with the alcohol license and everything.
Yeah.
And by the way,
that's Dolan also trying to remember, we're talking about bad owners in sports. You forgot about me. I'm back.
I mean, his interview on Carden and Roberts. And I think Carden and Roberts actually handled that interview very well. But Dolan was looking for a fight or attention.
Think about the fact that that's the only show on WFAN that he would have gone on. He wouldn't have gone on anybody else. With anybody else.
Maybe Boomer and Gio, because it's the morning show, maybe. But
no, I don't think so. I really believe that was the only show he was going on.
Supposedly, he's friends with Craig, which is a little bit scary, in my opinion. But
yeah, I'm going to reserve judgment on that.
But to get back to the trade, but the Nets, I think, actually got a lot of value out of Kyrie Irving because I thought he was damaged goods. Like, I didn't think they were going to get this much, but to get Dorian-Finney Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie, which I was kind of upset when they traded him the first time. I'm glad they got him back. I think he will be a great fit back on this roster. And hopefully they keep him this time. And I like the draft capital, but unfortunately the draft capital is going to go right back out the window during the trade deadline, at least from what we're hearing.
Yeah, so I mean, you had talked to me about this before we started today, that you think the Nets are going to do more. And I think they have to do more because, now all they've got now is Durant. I mean, they're getting some nice little pieces around him, but now all they've got is Durant.
I mean, Seth Curry's fine. He ended up getting hurt the other night, though, with a groin injury. But when he's not hurt, he has a little bit of Steph Curry in him. He can shoot the three. I'm not saying he is Steph Curry, but like he can be a floor general, so that KD doesn't have to do it. And I don't know. They have a lot of pieces to find and make, but they're going to take those 3 picks, the number 1 protected, and then the 2 second-round picks. You better get something good if you're going to trade that.
Well, they need a big player in here somehow because I mean they've got some nice little pieces. I actually been watching their games the last little bit. That Cam Thomas kid is looking really, really good.
He does look good,
but I mean, they got a spark from some guys. I was watching them against the Clippers on Monday night. They look good, but they need a solid player in here somewhere. In this Eastern Conference, which is very, very strong and very, very deep. I mean, they're going to need somebody else. And as far as I would say Dallas goes here, I think Dallas was desperate. The one criticism you've been hearing about them is how they don't have anybody really to play with Luka. I know some of their guys have been hurt, but even Luka's missed some time this year. In fact, they've only won one game that Luka has not been on the floor with, and that was their most recent one. But the fifth in the West, in a Western Conference, which is very, very bunched up right now, I think there was really more desperation from them than anything to bring Kyrie in, and we'll see if it works out. I consider myself hesitant to say that. I don't know if it's going to work. I think from the Nets side, I think it was smart to move on, but you're going to compete in this conference. You got to get another player in here by Thursday.
I mean, I did a ETB minute this morning on. Well, my 2 ETB minutes. Ironically, this has never happened to me before on the 2 minutes. I did them both on the beginning of the trade and what's happening now with the Mavs. I've never done that before.
Well, so you had probably you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I never did the back-to-back minutes on the same story.
Well, there was another angle to this too, in that on Monday night that the Nets were supposedly looking at maybe even expanding this trade to get a third team involved, and I think it was not Shams. It was Woj who was saying that it could have been the Toronto Raptors trying to get involved as well, and that maybe if that was the case, you would have talked about somebody like a Fred VanVleet.
Oh, I would have been down if Fred VanVleet had come to the Nets. I would have been ecstatic. But
yeah,
the thing is, originally what happened is the Lakers were desperate. They were trying to get Kyrie Irving, and I did some TikToks on this for our ETV Network account and how LeBron sat down with Michael Wilbon on ESPN and he didn't say the word desperate, but he was acting desperate, saying, I know my team, the Lakers were in on it. LeBron, stop. You're so desperate, it's not even funny. And I know people are going to say, Nick, the LeBron hater. I mean, this has nothing to do with LeBron hate. You just sound desperate. You want the Lakers to go out and get every piece and damage the rest of their future so that you can win.
Which in some ways they kind of have already.
But I'm saying every team, look at the track record of LeBron James, of every team he's been on. Destroys it. Destroys every team's future. It took Miami how many years? 3 to 4 years to climb out of that?
It took a while, yep.
Look at the Lakers. It's going to take them 4 to 5 years because they've damaged all their draft capital all the way up to 2028.
I mean, Cleveland's back again now.
It took them 5 to 6 years because they damaged everything.
Yep.
So, and I can't believe I'm going to make this statement too, and I'm going to say this on ETB, but I think Kyrie Irving is more of a headache than LeBron James now.
Wow, I don't know if I would have ever heard you say that before, but I've always believed that.
I'm officially saying that as a LeBron hater. I'm saying I think I'm angry at Kyrie Irving, more angry at Kyrie Irving than I am at LeBron James.
So where do you think the Nets go from here now in terms of getting because they're going to have to do something else here. You would imagine that maybe this move was made with the envision of maybe getting another one done by Thursday at 3 p.m.
I mean, I could throw out a wild scenario, which I don't think is going to happen, but
this is always my favorite thing on sports radio is when you get the callers and they throw out these crazy trade proposals.
Well, I give it some thought, though.
You do, yes. Some other people, though, I mean, and I tell you, I try not to bust out.
I laugh at some of the ones. Oh, go out and get such and such star from this team and you'll win. No, it doesn't work that way. I used to love that.
You got to match salaries and stuff. It's a little bit different, too.
Well, that's what I used to say with the KD trade. Kevin Durant. You can't trade him unless you're going to match $44 million in salary.
And they're still talking about that happening, by the way.
But
let me hear your proposal.
Well, I don't have a direct proposal, just a player in a wild scenario.
Okay.
Because, to go back to the NFL for a second, I said Aaron Rodgers should go to San Francisco, or Aaron Rodgers should go to the wild scenario I thought was Aaron Rodgers should go to the Browns. But that was a whole different. I think the Nets should take those 3 picks because they basically said they're going to expand on all the capital they have, so they're not going to keep it.
Yeah.
I would take those 3 picks. I go to Portland and I try to get Damian Lillard.
Oh, wow. Now, Portland right now is just on the outside of the playoff picture in that bunched up Western Conference.
Can you imagine putting Damian Lillard and KD in with the Brooklyn Nets?
That'd be pretty cool.
I'm just saying, take the draft capital. Portland's not going anywhere. Okay, Portland has been basically, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Lockstep at the bottom of the conference for a while.
Yeah. When's the last time we talked about them making a deep playoff run? The
last time that one playoff year where Damian Lillard hit all the buzzer beaters in each round. I don't remember what year that was, but that was like a heck of a year for Damian Lillard also. But that's what I would do. I'd take the draft capital. I would say, here you go. Here's an unprotected first. Here's 2 second rounders. And maybe they throw in somebody else. I don't know. And the money can be matchable, even though I think Damian Lillard makes quite a bit more than KD and a bunch of the other guys. But I think he makes like 57 or 58 million a year. It's a 2-year extension he ended up getting. but
Not a huge one, right?
he chose to take the money over 2 years as opposed to the longer extension. But because I don't think he really wants to be there. I think he just took the money. But
I kind of agree with you on that. Yeah.
that's my wild scenario. The Nets should take those 3 picks, go to Portland, see if I can get Damian Lillard, and see what I can do. Now,
there is now. I will tell you this though: there is a trade restriction though with Lillard.
For what? You mean a no trade?
He cannot be traded until July 9th.
What?
Yeah, I'm just looking at his contract on Spot Track, which is a great thing.
I love Spot Track.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now, and they're saying that he cannot be traded until July 9th of this year.
It's so stupid.
And then he's 32 years old. That's right. He's been in the league for a while. He's making 45 next year and just under 49 in 2024, 2025.
Believe it or not, that's not awful. Believe it or not.
No, it's not. I mean, it's kind of like with Durant, and Durant's obviously much older than he is. But yeah, so Lillard cannot be traded until July 9th. I guess that may have been part of the extension that he signed.
That's ridiculous. I hate that's like a no trade in baseball.
It's kind of like no trade, yeah. So if Lillard's going to come here, it's going to be in the off season.
Well, that floored my scenario, but that's what I would have done with those 3 picks.
Hey, it's not bad though. I mean, it's not the craziest thing because I agree with you. I don't think Lillard wants to stay. Eventually, he's going to stay there the rest of his career, especially considering he's been there for a long time. And again, look at the success. He's had great success personally, but the team hasn't.
Is it weird also that basically now we don't even think about bringing guys up and making them into stars? Now we just look at who are the best stars in the league, and that's all we do now.
Kind of been one of the many problems with the NBA, if you think about it. Now, the thing I would say, which would just to close out the Portland thing for 1 second, the Western Conference has always been the last several years the conference, the deepest conference. Now it's the East, and now still Portland can't get out of their way in the West. I mean, in the West, really, it's Denver, it's Memphis, and it's the Kings. I mean, the Kings have 30 wins. It's kind of what they've been averaging a season these last several years, and they've.
The Kings might have a chance to make the playoffs this year. Who knows? It's going to be tough. But
yeah, I mean, they're 30 and 23, but I mean, you look at how bunched up from 5 to, I'm just looking at it here right now. Think about it, from 5 to 13.
5 to 14.
Right?
I think it was like 5 to 14.
It's 5 through 13. I mean, I could even say 4 through 13 if you want, but let's say 5 through 13. Dallas and Phoenix both are 29 and 26. And the Lakers, who are in the 13th spot, are 25 and 29. So
I know, it's insane.
4 games between 8 teams.
That can literally change in a week.
It can be because remember, if you think about it now, Dallas gets Kyrie, Phoenix is just getting Devin Booker back. Golden State has been doing this kind of with guys in and out of the lineup. And speaking of Golden State, we'll transition there right now. Steph Curry, unfortunately, is hurt again with a leg injury. Now he's going to be out, sources are saying, through the All-Star break. But when you read and listen to what exactly the injury is, it sounds like it's a lot more serious than just through the All-Star break.
I mean, I was trying to say the name to Johnny before we started, and I felt like I needed a doctor or someone in science.
Doctor in the house here?
What?
Is there a doctor in the house here?
Yeah, I wish. Sorry, I only play one on TV. Anyway, I'm trying to find the injury. I can't find it at the moment. Oh, here it is. It's a superior tibiofibular ligament, partial tears to that, and an anterior-cis membrane, as well as a contusion in lower left leg. Oi!
Yeah, I mean, the partial tear in the ligaments is just like stops you in your tracks there.
He's not playing. He's not playing.
I think it's gonna be a while. Now, Monday night, Klay Thompson looked like the Klay Thompson of old, draining 3 after 3, going off for 42 points on Monday night.
But when you don't have Steph, you can't spread the floor. I mean,
Steph's one of the most important players in all of sports. I mean, he's probably the guy that's transformed this league. Maybe not for the better, but he's transformed this league in some major ways.
I would say that he changed the league from being a jump shooting league to a high range, rapid fire shooting league.
I was watching the net game Monday night. It is really incredible. Like, these guys go down the floor and they're shooting within 5 seconds. Now, I think it's twofold. I think it's that the defense. Look, you want to talk about the defense? I think the shooting though has gotten so much better though in the league nowadays that there's no defense, there's no positionless basketball. I mean, it's a variety of things. If you want to go back to like the old school basketball, you got to go watch college hoops because it's just that's really it. And the change from college to the NBA is like it's so dramatic right now. It's unbelievable.
The one thing I don't understand, and I said this to you about college football and professional football, why aren't we making them the same rules or close to the same rules?
Well, so college doesn't have that many differes because
1 step, 1 foot.
Well, they have the 1 foot rule,
but that's bad because think about once they enter the league, they have to change the way they think.
Yeah. Now, see the NBA. I mean, college,
the range in the NBA is different.
Yeah, and also the 20-minute halves versus the 4 quarters.
If you also notice when the guys shoot three, they're shooting more threes in college basketball because the ranges are smaller.
Yeah, that is a fair point.
So I don't know. I think part of the reason some of these guys get hurt is because they don't have those right now. Steph Curry's been in the league a long time.
Yeah.
Now, Steph Curry has had a history of injuries. He really had to change his game to be a better player. But now they said he had leg injuries or he had injuries in the past, but somehow he managed to work through it and win the championships.
These last couple of years, you've noticed now the hand, the leg. It's been quite a few things now with Curry.
How old is he now?
He's been in the league. Geez, I want to say he's probably about 30. Just guessing too, because he's been in the league for a long time.
34.
He's there. I was going to say he's probably in his early to mid 30s. Because
him and Durant are the same age.
Yeah, because I was going to say the Davidson run was so long ago.
I mean that was like the Cinderella run back in the day.
That was it. Yeah, like the Loyola Chicago's, and I think you're going to have another one of those this year, which we'll get to in the future. But
Steph Curry, first of all, if this is partial tears, he's going to be gone He could be gone for the rest of the year, for all we know. And if he doesn't play for a majority of the way, I'm basically going to say he's not going to play at all. They're sunk. They're done.
They're in big trouble. Yeah.
I think you're being nice. I'm going to say they're going to be completely sunk without Steph Curry.
Can they survive though in this Western Conference, which again is just not strong?
No, I mean you have teams above them that they don't have a floor general. That's a big thing that's going to hurt them. I mean, I'm looking at the standings,
right?
And I don't know where they are now. They're 7th.
They're 7th right now. Yeah.
Now, let's go through some of the teams. Sacramento is a 3 seed. That confuses me. That's like a mismatch there. Because the 2 teams at the top, Denver and Memphis, are going to be there for all season.
Yeah.
The Clippers are beatable. Is Kawhi ever going to be healthy and play a full season? No. Paul George has been hurt.
I tell you what, I watched that game Monday night, and it's just so weird that there really seems to be something missing with the Clippers.
And when they brought in John Wall because they thought they were going to revive his career, that's gone nowhere. The Mavericks, who are in the 5th seed, they got Kyrie. The thing I was going to bring up is Jason Kidd thinks their window is open. That's what I end up doing the second minute. And I'm like, really? Can we pump the brakes a little bit, please? Because you're pairing Kyrie with Luka. That doesn't mean you're going to win a title.
Again, names sound great, but if there's anything we've learned in the NBA, it's chemistry more than anything else.
Right. So let's pump the brakes. They're in the 5th seed. That's probably right where they should be right now. They're playing good basketball. I can't remember the guy's name, the one for the Knicks who they got.
Jalen Brunson?
Well, no, the other player that they have that used to be in the Knicks uniform, Hardaway.
Oh, Tim Hardaway Jr., yep.
Who I happen to like. I think he's come into his own, finally being on the Mavs roster.
Yeah.
They have a good roster, but they got chemistry is the key to everything.
There's something missing there with Dallas, yeah.
And then the Suns are in the 6th seed. They're a mystery box right now, as Hank would say. Like
Hank, we see there it is.
So I don't know, because Booker's been hurt all year. So all the teams that are above Golden State, it's definitely doable. I mean, they'll be there in the hunt without Curry, but I look at the teams below them. Minnesota in the 8th seed. They're a disappointment. in every way, shape. Everyone thought they were going to be a 2 or 3 seed. They're a disappointment.
They thought when that trade was made for what was it,
Gobert,
that they were going to take off from there. And
right? But
really
Gobert, and see if you can follow my logic here. Gobert is Ben Wallace.
I think he's Ben Wallace like, yeah.
Because you're not expecting much offense out of him. He's there to block shots. That's it. He's not really putting up. I mean, if he's point blank, that's the only time he's going to score.
Yeah. And then the Pelicans and the Jazz rounding out the top 10. And then right behind them, you've got the Blazers, the Thunders, and the Lakers.
The Pelicans had a good run to start the season. Then they kind of the Zion injury again,
yeah,
has been a problem. And to be honest, and people are going to say I'm being too harsh, they might need to think about getting rid of Zion.
Well, there was that talk last year about it, and Zion wanted, and they ended up keeping him there. But you remember there was talk in the offseason last year about that happening.
I mean, this might be a little harsh too, but Zion is kind of heading down the Greg Oden path.
Well, and it's funny because, everybody's talking about the Knicks with trying to compare Zion and Barrett, and I think the Knicks got the better end of that. Now, unfortunately, Barrett's having a down year this year, and of course, with the talk about Donovan Mitchell, but
Knicks fans got to let that go. They really do. Not you. I know you get it, but Knicks fans got to let that go.
Nick, if Donovan Mitchell was a Knick right now, I think they'd only be a couple of games better than they are right now. It's more than just that. And who knows how Donovan would have fit on the Knicks. I always said I think that Cleveland's is a better team overall. Now the Knicks have some nice pieces. They've had some good moments this year, but
they need to make a choice though. Either they're going to go for it or they're not. You can't.
I don't think they know.
And this is such a cliche saying, but you can't be half pregnant.
Well, see, the thing, again, that East is so strong, though, right now. I mean, the Knicks right now are the 7th seed. But, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, are they better than Boston? No. Are they better than Milwaukee? No. Are they better than Philadelphia? No. Are they better than Cleveland? No. Are they better than the Nets?
Yes.
Right now?
I would say probably. Well, let me take that back. They have KD. When healthy, KD will be better than them.
Yeah. So there's that. And then Miami. I still think Miami's better than them. That's
Hawks questionable. It's questionable with Butler being out.
The Hawks always play them tough. That was my thing too. And I'd spoken about this the day that the Mitchell trade was made.
Right.
Would the Knicks have been better than any of those teams with Donovan Mitchell? The answer would have been no. And I still maintain that.
It would have been closer, but
I think maybe they leapfrog one or two of those teams, but not Boston, not Milwaukee, not Philadelphia. At least.
The top 3? No. I mean, they would get embarrassed by those.
Yeah.
Because if say the scenario is they stay where they are at a 7th seed, they play Milwaukee in the first round. Yeah. That they'd be dead meat in the first round.
So we will see. Now, I will put this out there real quick. We're still working on it, and of course it's really all going to depend on me. But we're planning on doing a trade deadline show. That if that does happen, that'll happen.
More reactionary.
Yeah, more of a reactionary thing. If that does happen, that's going to drop on Thursday at 4 p.m. Best thing to do, folks, is to click the notification tab on our YouTube channel. And, of course, follow us across our social media platforms, and we will let you know. It would be more of a reactionary thing, and if it did happen, it would happen Thursday at 4 p.m. Find out if any of the deals happen between now and then. And if not, then we'll also react next week on the show.
If you're looking for NBA breaking news, game on ETV at ETV Sports. You know I'm like a hound on NBA trade deadline.
Yeah, in all likelihood too, it'd probably be Nick and myself if we were able to do it next on Thursday. So just again, keep it tuned to our social media channels, and we will keep you updated on that. All right, Nick. Let me get to this. Speaking of the basketball, there is one other thing too here before we wrap up the show. The NBA and the Players Association did extend once again their early opt-out date for the CBA, and I got to tell you, we keep hearing about extending these days. I'm telling you, there's going to be a lockout. Just the signs are there. We keep talking about this opt-out date getting pushed back more and more, and with all the problems that the NBA has been having, I mean, doesn't it just feel like this is inevitable?
I mean, there's a lot of issues. I mean. Excuse me. I remember when we were doing the MLB and the MLBPA lockout, all the money issues, the cap issues, which is another issue the NBA is having with cap issues. By the way, in one thing that I've had a problem with in all professional sports, stop with the cap. Stop with the cap. I'm so tired of this. Let the team spend. What is having a cap making worse in professional sports? Do you have an answer for this? Because I don't.
I don't know.
What, are you afraid to give a player 50, 60, 70 million dollars? We're heading that direction already.
You're seeing it in football. I'm telling you, Burrow and Herbert are going to be $50 million plus quarterbacks, $50 million a year quarterbacks.
I mean, the one issue you're going to run into is a family of four can't afford a game anymore. But we already knew that.
Baseball. If you look at baseball, they were already talking about Shohei Ohtani being the first $500 million contract.
It's not going to be in Los Angeles.
No, I mean, you're talking about maybe it's Citi Field at the Mets because of Cohen, but I don't know.
That would be insane. New York,
and that would have had to happen already because Ohtani's been in the league for a few years already. I think that would have happened already.
First of all, if you thought New York baseball tickets were expensive now, wait until that deal happens.
He's sticking to the minor leagues here, or maybe if they add an expanded team and they put it in Charlotte, maybe that'll be something too.
But just so the discussions between the NBA and NBPA, hostile. That's the word I think of that comes to mind. They're talking about the size pursue an early label. A significant part of what has allowed discussions to progress has been the NBA's willingness to soften from its original push for an upper spending limit on team bills. See, again, with the payrolls and the spending limits. Stop with the spending limits. What is that accomplishing? Tell me.
No,
let the team spend. You get mad, and I've talked about this, and you've talked about this. We've all talked about you're trying to stop the owners from putting the money in their pocket. You're basically saying to put a limit on the spending, so now they're going to put the money in their pocket.
And this doesn't solve the whole thing about load management. If anything, it'll probably only make it worse if all this money that's happening. The load management days are just absolutely killing the sport. Seems like we keep hearing stories about, fans that travel near and far to go see one of their best players and they don't play.
Now, it says the introduction of the upper spending limit into talks had been rooted in the desire of smaller market teams to rein the spending of franchises such as the Warriors, the Clippers, and the Nets. Okay, I'm going to fight that one back for a second. Go out and spend money if you don't want that to happen. The big market teams have the money, so they're going to go out and spend it. So instead, the NBA is going to come out on behalf of how many teams are there? 30? 32? How many teams are in the NBA?
30.
30. You're going to come out on behalf of the other 27 teams because they're not willing to spend. Really? Go out and spend the money. There's no one telling you can't. You're being cheap.
Of course, it's always about, like you say, it's always about the money. It is always about the money. And I just think of all the issues that are actually on the court and stuff. And again, I keep thinking about load management. I think the regular season is way too long as is. And you keep hearing the talk about the pushback about extending the early date. It almost was like that with baseball. How they just kept pushing everything back and back, and
So they're also saying that CJ McCollum, who took over for Chris Paul as the head of the Players Association, and Tamika Tremaglio, who took over for I can't remember her name at the moment. Michelle Roberts. Basically, it says that there's no pathway to essentially accept a hard salary cap. Okay, fine. We don't need it. Why are you fighting over it if we really don't need it? Let the team spend. Go ahead, spend.
I just have a bad feeling about all this. I really do.
There's some other factors as well. So some of the media companies that are involved. Did you see the story about Sinclair and the Diamond Sports Regional Network?
No.
So apparently they're heading into potential bankruptcy. and they hold 16 of the team's local NBA rights. 16.
I thought Sinclair had a good amount of them. That's more than half, though.
And it says the longer the labor talks linger, the more moderate positions among ownership can harden on financial issues and risk deeper difficulties on reaching a labor deal. If they default, essentially, and they go to lockout, you're going to lose 16 of the NBA team's local rights.
This could be a big downfall. Yeah, and all the talk about that high draft pick, Wannabe, Utah. No, who's the guy? Who's the player that's in France right now that they're so high on?
Who? Which team?
No, just about the big player overseas that's going to be the number one pick that's being.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name. But it's just this whole thing is dumb, and it says beyond the NBPA, there were also skepticism among smaller NBA marketplaces, which worry that an upper spending limit would fail to create the competitive. We're going to go back to the competitive balance tax all over again.
Drink.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to need that at this point. It says they're hoping to achieve instead causing well-constructed smaller market teams to have to break up cores of contending. All right. This all goes back to when they put the competitive spending tax in, or competitive balance tax in, when the big three started to come into play in the NBA. Okay? Now it's not working anymore because big threes cost too much money.
Especially nowadays, yeah.
I mean, look at the league. Steph Curry, Draymond, and Clay. Those were actually, what's the word I want to use? Decent contracts. That's why they worked.
Yeah.
The original big three, LeBron, Chris Bosh, and D-Wade, they all took less money to go to Miami. Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce pretty much took less money. I don't know. Were there any other big threes I left out?
Well, the big three at the Garden, Carmelo, Amari, Chandler did not.
No, that one didn't really work. My point is the competitive balance tax. That's what they're arguing about here. They're not saying it, but that's what they're arguing about here. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lockout. There's going to be a lockout, and if that happens, 16 teams are going to lose their local media rights, and that's going to be a problem. And these owners, and it says 20 of the 30 NBA teams are currently below the luxury tax threshold of 150.3 million, with the other 10 teams projected to pay a league record, listen to this, $689 million in luxury tax penalties in the 2022-2023 season. Think about that. That's crazy, right?
It is. It really is.
And I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more big number.
One more.
58% is shared amongst the Warriors, 176.5 million, the Clippers, 145 million, and the post Kyrie Irving Nets at 80 million. Those three teams contributed to 73% of the luxury tax penalties in the 2021-2022 season.
Unbelievable.
It's all about the money.
It is. Absolutely.
Now I know you don't have time because I know you got to run out, but I could spend forever.
Oh, you know what? I'm sure this will be one of those stories that you will write to be continued because it will be. Yeah, no, but this is not. I looked at this on Monday night and I was like, this is not a good sign.
I mean, I can't even get into it. I'll just give a quick list, even though we can't get into it.
Yeah.
They want to find mechanisms to incentivize top players participating in more regular season games. There you go. There's the answer to what you were talking about, which the league believes is essential competition and maximizing the league's looming media rights deals. Oh, you mean like when the Spurs all decided to sit out the TNT game, which led to the issues and being fined $250,000?
Well, stop with the back-to-backs and shorten the season. I know they'll never do that, but that would be a good start.
So is that essentially the Kawhi Leonard rule? Is that where we're going there?
I think so, yeah.
And then the last one, to end the one-and-done early entry rule and allow 18-year-old high school players back into the NBA draft. That's a pet peeve with you. I know that.
Yeah.
That should be the LeBron James rule.
LeBron rule, that's right.
But I could spend another 2 hours on this, but we don't have that time.
I'm steaming right now.
But all right, go ahead. You can finish the show.
That this will be a story that I'm sure we're going to be talking about a lot because I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And we won't be going away anytime soon. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap it up here for today, but we do have a lot coming up here over the course of the week. So, of course, if you like today's broadcast, leave a like button. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, and as always, hit that notification bell so you know when we're going to come on next. So our plan right now is, of course, Nick and Tom will be back on Empty the Bench on Wednesday. That'll be at 3 p.m. Eastern here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Everything works out well. Thursday, we'll be back at 4 p.m. for a post-NBA trade deadline analysis. The trade deadline is Thursday at 3. We'll let the time pass by, see if any of the last-minute deals happen. We will react on there. And then we will all be back on Saturday at 1 p.m. for our Super Bowl preview show, where we'll all be together, go over the latest news, anything else that happens. It'll be a fun time to get you ready for the big game on Sunday. And then, of course, we'll be back next week to react to that. And any other stuff that happens, maybe start transitioning to a little baseball and latest with that, hockey. Anything that we've learned here doing this show for a year is that there's always news. It never takes a break. So hopefully I'll be back.
Even during COVID.
That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we will see you for all of that. But Nick, thanks for joining us today. Good to get back into the flow of things. And we'll see how, my life will allow me to keep doing this. But absolutely. So catch Nick later on Wednesday for Empty the Bench. We'll all be back together on Saturday, maybe back on Thursday as well. So that's what's going to happen. So for Nick Morgasen, I'm Johnny Montalbano. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody, and including the big game on Sunday. And we'll talk to you again next week.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.